Okay, so the topic for today is continuing our study of properties. This time we are going to look at properties of multiplication. The learning target here should be I can use properties to help use mental math to solve problems. So you're going to kind of use what you know about properties and then use mental math with that, couple it together to solve problems. So this looks very similar to the one we've done in the past. So you're going to cut out all along the dotted lines, and then these little definitions up here you're going to use to try to figure out which definition goes to which term. Now, the terms are, the properties are the same, and they're just tweaked just a little bit because it's now talking about multiplication rather than addition. But I encourage you not to look back and sort of cheat and kind of match them up. I want you to use what you know to try to match them up and what makes sense, because that's the process of learning these. So go ahead. You should have already, folded and everything. You're going to try to match up the definitions with each word. So I want you to pause the video, go ahead and match them up. Don't glue yet, and then we'll come back together and you'll see if you're correct. So I'm assuming you've gone ahead and tried them on your own. The identity property of 1 is very similar to identity property of 0. In this case, the product of 1 and any number is just that number. So if I take 5 times 1, it's going to give me 5. Any number times 1 is just that number. Multiplicative inverse is two numbers that multiply together equal 1. So two numbers that you can multiply together to equal 1. For all real numbers A, B, and C, the product is always the same. Well, that's going to be associative. Remember the grouping. And then the last one, two or more numbers can be multiplied in any order without changing the product, and that would just be commutative property. So let's go ahead and we're going to go ahead and glue this down first. So on the back, if you want to throw some glue on this rectangular part, get it as close to the target as you can without covering it up. Go ahead and glue that down. Then you're going to, again, draw your X across the center here, which leaves you some space for examples. So let's start with two or more numbers multiplied together equal 1. So if you're thinking about the number 4, what could I multiply 4 by in order to get 1? Well, it's not something that's very easy to think about. When you think about fractions, if I said 4 times what number equals 1, if I think about the fractions, well, we haven't necessarily talked about this yet, but we're going to. If I have 4 over 1 and I multiply by its reciprocal, which is 1 over 4, then I'm going to say 4 times 1 is 4. Here. And then 1 times 4 is also 4, and 4 over 4 equals 1 whole. So any whole number times its reciprocal is going to give you 1. So if I did 6 times 1/6, that's going to give me 1. If I do 1/2 times 2, that's also going to give me 1. So it's something that it'll become, you'll start to understand it a little better as you kind of work with it. And then when we move forward into fractions, it'll become very clear to you. The product of 1 and any number is that number. Well, that's pretty self-explanatory. If we have 6 times 1, that gives us 6. If we have 5 times 1, that gives us 5. If we have -7 times 1, that gives us -7. If we have 1 times -25, that gives us -25. Anything times 1 is just going to give us that number back. Commutative property. 2 or more numbers can be multiplied in any order without changing the product. So if I have 6 times 5, that is the same thing as 5 times 6. They both equal 30. If I have -4 times 3, it's the same thing as 3 times -4. All I'm doing is switching the order of the numbers. Remember that commute, if you commute to and from work, so you're flip-flopping. You go to work from home, and then you go to home from work or school. Same thing. If we have -12 times -2, That's the same thing as negative 2 times negative 12. They both equal 24. And then the last one we're going to discuss is associative property. Associative property just states it deals with the moving of parentheses. So if I said 4 times 8 times 2, that's going to be the same thing as if we did 4 times 8 and then multiplied by 2. Again, reminding you that these numbers stay in the same order. The only thing that changes is the way the numbers are grouped. Okay, so in this case, 8 and 2 are grouped together. In this case, 4 and 8 are grouped together, but they equal the same thing. Another example could be negative 7 times 2 times negative 3. And that will be the same thing as negative 7 times 2 times negative 3. The grouping is different, but they equal the same thing. Okay, so let's go ahead and close these up. Down at the bottom, I'll give you just a couple of notes to reinforce these ideas. So we have an example. And this is where the mental math piece comes in. This is the reason why you have to learn these things. So if I'm talking about associative property and I'm talking about we can group the numbers in a different way and still get the same answer, then if we were given a set of numbers that we need to multiply, say this set, well, if you did 4 times 8, that gives us 32, and 32 times 25, well, I would have to kind of write that down. But if you thought about it, you should already know mental math-wise that 4 times 25 is 100, right? So if we group 4 times 25, that gives us 100, all right? And then we know that, so then we could take 100 times 8, which is what's left here, to give us 800. Now, isn't that easier than trying to multiply 32 by 25? Yes. Is it going to give you the same answer? Yes. But the more you can do in your head, the quicker you're going to be able to solve these problems. So we can conclude based on this that 4 times 8 times 25 gives us 800. Second example. I want you to think about this one before I give you the answer. Okay, so what if I gave you, I want you to think about a way you can use mental math, 20 times 6 times 5. Okay, so think about an easier way. Instead of doing 20 times 6 and then times 5, what's an easier way to think about it? Take a second, pause the video, see if you can figure it out, and then come back and check yourself. Okay, so I'm assuming that you've already done that. If I group 20 and 5 together, then that's going to give me 100 using mental math. 20 times 5 is 100. So then I'm going to take my 100 and I'm going to multiply by 6, which gives me 600. So therefore, I can assume 20 times 6 times 5 equals 600 total. Okay, so hopefully these concepts are making sense to you. If they're not, obviously you need to check with a partner or come and see me. If they are, then I'm going to assume you are ready for mastery, and we're going to take that mastery coming up. So go ahead and work on your practice, whatever's attached to your work plan, and that's it.